All right, this story here comes out of Laurel, Maryland. This candidate I haven't heard of before, but I saw the story and I figured I'd go ahead and cover it. I don't know what her views are politically, but we'll find out eventually. We will find out. You know, a lot of these black politicians, a lot of them say the right thing before they get in there, and then they switch it up because they getting these kickbacks from what do they call it, lobbyists. They might start off on the right track, but then that money always, that money tends to change people when they get in office. Like Maxine Waters. I never really liked Kamala Harris because her track record. I try not to go in on them, but yeah, Kamala Harris was a piece of work out there in San Francisco. The things she was doing to the black community, and now they trying to. Whenever the election come around, they say black vice president, but when she don't need to vote, she's Asian. So it is what it is. But we're gonna get into this story and see what's going on. I know a lot of these high IQ individuals would probably be in the comments saying this is a hoax also. Ever since Jesse Smollett did what he did, everything is a hoax black people do. But let's get into it. Police investigate hateful vandalism of Senate candidate's campaign sign. This is from WBAL TV, updated June 18th, 2024. David Collins. Someone scrawled threatening symbols on Angela Alsobrooks' campaign sign, prompting a police investigation. The vandalism included crosshairs drawn on the Democratic Senate nominee's forehead, as well as the letters KKK written on the sign in Laurel. If elected, Alsobrooks will become the first black U.S. Senator from Maryland. The Alsobrooks campaign told 11 News the candidate's safety is of concern. However, the vandalism will not deter the campaign, and it shouldn't, but definitely treat it seriously. I think I know a little bit about what it feels like to be persecuted. Also, Brooks exclusively told 11 News investigators, someone put a bullseye on my head, a big picture with a bullseye, and a scary message on the sign, so I know what it feels like. KKK is not scary to me. That's not scary. That's a joke. During a roundtable discussion with Jewish leaders about Gaza, Alsobrooks said, we all want the same thing, to take care of our community. Okay, she's sitting down with Jewish leaders about Gaza. What they got to do with the black community? I'm beginning to see a pattern already. This is the second time Alsobrooks' campaign has been targeted. In April, someone broke into and vandalized her Silver Springfield office. At the time, campaign officials reported operational items were thrown in the trash, personal belongings stolen, and sensitive campaign information was exposed. Montgomery County Police continue to investigate that case. Republican U.S. Senator nominee Larry Hogan quickly responded, condemning the vandalism, posting on social media, hate, threats of violence, and racism must be condemned in the strongest possible terms. They have no place in Maryland. All right. The typical things they say, but he might be the person that's sending them people to mess with her. So definitely treat things like this serious. You always want to be cautionary when something like this happens because these people are crazy out here. You don't want to take threats like that lightly. As you can see, I got a picture of some of the first black congressmen in this article, and I did that because show a comparison of how black politicians were treated in the past when we were emancipated to today. They can't go as hard as they did back in the day where they were hanging black politicians or openly threatening them to run them out of office, but they do it in little sneaky ways today. I've never believed that we were 13%. I always believed that our numbers were greater than what they were telling us, for the simple fact that during slavery, we were treated like a piece of equipment and they profited from free labor. The black slaves probably outnumbered the white in this country, and to go from that to 13% after slavery and to remain 13% of this day and not grow any just sounds absurd to me, and I don't buy that. I never bought into that. Yeah, I just wanted to show the comparison of how black politicians were treated back in the day. I got an article that I was gonna put in here, but it's rather long, so I'll just reference it shortly right here. The Black Congressman of Reconstruction, Death of Representation. Let's go into a little bit of it. Okay, I'm gonna reference this real quick. He estimates that about 2,000 black Americans held some kind of public office during Reconstruction. We tend to think of slaves ignorant or unsophisticated, but they had been living in American society for their whole lives, and their parents had too. The slave trade from Africa had ended long before these people were Americans, and they wanted the same rights, the same opportunities as free white people had. In 1874, the U.S. Congress debated a civil rights law that would outlaw discrimination based on race in hotels, theaters, and railway cars. The highlight of debate came when South Carolina Congressman Robert Brown Elliott faced down the bill's chief opponent, Georgia Congressman Alexander Stephens. Just 13 years earlier, Stephens and Vice President of the Confederate of States of America had given a speech proclaiming slavery was the cornerstone of the Confederacy. You don't say. The progress of events has swept away the... One Kentucky newspaper said this was the most impressive speech by a black man in American history. Now that's saying something when you have Frederick Douglass out there giving brilliant speeches, Foreigner said. Elliott became a nationally known figure because of his speech of the Civil Rights Bill, with the votes of black American congressmen Joseph Rainey, Richard Kane, James T. Rappler, and John Roy Lynch. That Civil Rights Bill passed, and on March 1st, 1875, President Ulysses S. Grant signed it into law. Arthur Lawrence Otis Graham said, how gutsy was it for these guys not to just try to be elected, but to get seated and actually demand equality. Graham wrote a book about Mississippi Senator Blanche K. Bruce, who was born in the year he's seated in the Senate. Rocco said the year he's seated in the Senate, 1875, is the apex of black representation during Reconstruction. 7 House members and 1 senator. That's the high point. Yeah, it is, but he doesn't get to enjoy that high point very long with his colleagues, Graham said. When neither candidate in the 1876 presidential election secured enough votes in the Electoral College to be declared winner, a deal was struck. Southern Democrats agreed to back Republican candidate Rutherford B. Hayes. In exchange, the federal troops who have protected black voters were withdrawn from the South. Just a few years later, the Supreme Court struck down the Civil Rights Bill of 1875. Black voting rights were gradually stripped away, and black representation in Congress faded. Reconstruction was over. The Jim Crow era of segregation began. For most of the 20th century, Reconstruction was portrayed as a failure. D.W. Griffith's 1915 movies, The Birth of a Nation, depicted South Carolina's black state legislators as uncouth and given to drink, while also casting the Ku Klux Klan as heroes. The movie was a sensation with white audiences. President Woodrow Wilson even hosted a screening at the White House, and most schools thought Reconstruction as a misadventure at best, Foreigner said. That wasn't what I was taught in high school in the 1950s. Reconstruction was the worst period in American history. It was a travesty of democracy. Black people misused the right to vote, were not capable of serving in public office. That was taught everywhere. For a young Henry Louis Gates, this was particularly painful. The few black kids. Okay, yeah, I heard Dr. Clark. I heard Dr. John Henry Clark speaking about when Hayes got elected, how they turned their backs on the black people in the South. Yeah, I just wanted to read a little short excerpt from this article to show how they treated black politicians in the past and how they pretty much still treat them now. All right, y'all, let me know what y'all think in the comments, and we will see you on the next one.